If there's one thing that is certain right now, it's that the economy is uncertain. The prices that we're going to be paying for foods that are coming in from other countries is set to explode here in the coming future. Now, my channel isn't about politics. I'm not here to discuss that one way or another, but it is a reality that the imports that we bring in for other countries are getting ready to dramatically increase. Depending on where the bulk of your food comes from, this could have a big impact. So let's chat today about ways to avoid a huge increase. According to the available statistics from the USDA, Mexico is the largest single source of U.S. horticultural imports. In 2023, Mexico supplied 63% of U.S. vegetable imports and 47% of U.S. fruits and nuts. The main crops include tomatoes, avocados, bell peppers, and strawberries, while Canada supplied the U.S. with over $3 billion worth of beef in 2023, and they also send animal products, grains, and feeds, and seed oils and seed oil products. The only thing that came to my mind when I read these statistics was Houston. We have a problem. That's our fruits and vegetables. That is our beef. There are going to be some issues with the food supply system in the United States, and the costs are set to skyrocket if those products are the basis of what your family eats at home. Today, I want to share some tips that are going to help you navigate this as we move forward, and some strategies to help you keep your budget low and your kitchens full, along with a happy family all at the same time. The first tip that I have to share today takes me back to my childhood. I remember being maybe 4 or 5 years old when Made in the USA became a huge push, and it felt like everywhere I looked or everywhere I turned, there was a big sticker that said Made in the USA. That is something that we need to get back to here in 2025, and we need to make it a priority again. We kind of got off track with that as far as I'm concerned when seeking really inexpensive goods here in the United States, but that came at our own detriment. Our food supplies and our supply chain in general have been farmed out to other countries in an effort to keep costs low while giving away our safety nets of being able to supply the goods and services that we need here for ourselves. So number one tip is going to be to look for products made or grown in the USA. Now, while we're chatting today, I'm bringing you along as I unpack one of my recent grocery orders. And as I was thinking about what I wanted to share today, I went back through the bulk of my products and checked the country of origin on all of them, which is actually super easy to do since I make once a month grocery purchase online. So I went back to my Azure Standard account and I started searching up all the products that I've shown you. My carrots, blueberries, and wheat products were all grown in the USA. Now, one thing that you are seeing me do right now is go ahead and repackage my big bag of kamut so that I can put it away for proper storage. This is a grain that I use when baking bread. I do bake all of our own bread here at home, and I found that this is a really nice addition. But that's kind of a side note to what we're talking about right now. This specific grain says that it's grown, or countries of origin or origins are the USA and Canada. So while I'm grateful that I picked up this 25-pound bag before all of the tariffs took place, this specific product is something that I will watch pricing on or even consider substituting if the price is still high at the time when I need to replace it. I will caution you though, sometimes buying grains in bulk and pouring them up for storage can be a little bit dusty. As a result, on days like this, I like to pull out my HEPA air purifier from SimPure, which happens to be the sponsor of today's video. The MSA3, which is the HEPA filter that I have here, is rated for rooms 600 to 1,590 square feet. But the best part is it removes 99.97% of pet dander, which is important to us with our little kitty, dust, pollen, smoke, odors, and mold. Not only is it super effective, but it's also really lightweight, allowing it to easily be moved around from room to room as needed depending on the situation at your house. After a couple of weeks of use, you can see that my filter is a little bit dirty, but we definitely have not reached the level to need it replaced. To make that easy to recognize, there's actually a button right on the front that will light up when your filter is dirty enough to need that replacement, which is only every 6 to 8 months. It also offers an ultra quiet sleep mode plus 3 fan speeds and my personal favorite, a child lock. Now, as you can see, I might be the only one in the house who actually appreciates that, but for tiny little fingers like these, having that on there is very important. Speaking of little ones, I actually have a couple kids that have some pretty bad seasonal allergies. So I decided to go ahead and pick up a smaller one that is perfect for bedroom spaces as well. This is the MSB5H13 True HEPA air filter for small rooms, which is perfect for a bedroom, but is also really, really nice for the office. I actually just had a conversation with my husband the other day about getting a second one of these small ones so he can take it to work with him, so he can start breathing cleaner air even when he's away from the home. The best part about the small one is that it is incredibly quiet with noise levels as low as 20 decibels, which is perfect when you're sleeping. If you are interested in improving the air quality in your home, make sure to check out the links in the description. And thank you again to Simpure for sponsoring today's video. As I mentioned before, one of the products that we do get from Canada is dairy. Now, this could have a huge impact on some, but for us, we actually don't drink that much milk. And what we do get, which is about a gallon every couple weeks or even sometimes once a month, we source from a local farmer so we can eat or drink, I should say, raw milk. That said, I actually cook with milk quite often, so I purchase a powdered buttermilk. Not only is it shelf stable and always available when I need it, but it also is a product of the USA. Like I said, I went back through this order and was so happy to see that the majority of the items that I actually had incoming were already grown here in the United States. But that does not happen to be the case with my oatmeal. Now, for us, we go through maybe a 5-pound bag of oatmeal once a year. We used to eat a ton, but we've really cut back because we did pinpoint some stomach issues to kind of overeating of this specific grain. We do use them sometimes on occasion to make our own granola bars, though, which brings up another very important point. We are not just talking about the raw ingredients themselves that are going to be impacted by the potential price increases. We're talking about all the goods made from those products. Some items that are made with oatmeal are going to be oat milk, granola, breakfast cereals, breads, smoothies, trail mix, and of course, cookies. Now, one thing you might consider are those of you who are fans of Little Debbie's, and oatmeal cream pie used to be a delicacy, I'm not going to lie. Of course, it isn't these days, but those are made in the United States, although that doesn't mean that their supply of oatmeal is coming from the United States. So this trickle down is going to be impacting a whole lot of people. Another major, huge import, which has a far-reaching impact, is sugar. We import the majority of our sugar here in the United States. So anything that is sweetened could potentially be impacted depending on the source of that sugar. The one that I purchase is imported from Colombia, Mexico, Brazil, India, or Paraguay, just depending on the time of year. But that does have the ability to impact us moving forward. So keep your eyes out. The one amazing thing that I will tell you is that sugar is a forever food. So if you go out right now today and grab some sugar, it's very likely that you will avoid the impact of any of the sugar situation for things that you make at home. Now, if you're new here, I want to take just a second to introduce myself. My name is Jill. I'm a homeschooling mom of 5 kids, ages 11 to 3, and we focus on all things homemade and homegrown here at the house with an emphasis on the highest quality foods at the lowest prices possible. I do a lot of bulk buying here, which is what you're seeing me unpack right now, and I'm going to show you all the ways that I preserve and put these things away, but I also feel like it's a great opportunity to chat about the tariffs and what might be coming our way soon. And now I'd like to turn the corner and talk about my second tip for taking control of your finances with the impending tariffs on the way, which is to grow your own food. This is the absolute perfect time of year to grab a couple grow bags and put in some tomatoes and onions and peppers and some of those plants that we do rely heavily on that we get from Mexico. Now, I know for many that the idea of gardening is completely overwhelming. And I will say for myself, before the last 4 or 5 years, I was one of those people, totally overwhelmed. Everything that I ever planted died. But as time has come on and I've grown more and more interested in making sure that I have local sources, sustainable, consistent sources of food at my house, I have taken gardening on as an absolute source of joy and pleasure. So even if you're somebody who kills everything and you think there's no possible way this can be enjoyable, let me just assure you that that is not the case. You do have the ability to make changes and turn yourself into someone who can grow the products that you're looking for and that you're usually purchasing in the store for absolute pennies on the dollar. I have started plants from seed for the past 4 years, I believe at this point. I have started them in everything from egg cartons to toilet paper rolls, and recently have upgraded to some very much nicer and easier to use growing seed trays, but that is not necessary. And I'm telling you, a packet of seeds at the store is like $3 or $3.50. You can get an insane amount of yield out of just one tiny packet if you set your mind to it and go ahead and plant those seeds in some soil. I will, however, be the first to tell you that gardening can be as inexpensive as you'd like it to be, or you can quickly escalate that budget and spend a bunch of money getting all of the things just perfect like you would like them. But I'm here to tell you that it doesn't have to be ideal to produce quality food. All it takes is seeds, some soil, and water. And you need to be consistent with that water. But if you're looking for any specific varieties or considering getting anything, maybe a little different than you have in years past, make sure to go back at the end and watch the video that I did last week where I chatted about all of the seeds and exactly what I'm starting, why I'm starting it, and how I'm starting it. Because even if you live in the city and have a balcony, you have options to grow right there where you're at, whether that's a green stock or a grow bag. There are so many options to put the power back in everybody's hands to grow your own food. Having the ability to walk outside and cut a head of lettuce or go grab some tomatoes for a sandwich will really change the way you feel about your food security. And every single year, you'll grow more and more confident in your own ability to do just that. Now, really quick, I want to take a break from what I'm talking about to show you what I'm doing here. I'm actually washing up a 20-pound box of apples, or what was a 20-pound box of apples a couple days ago before my kids got their hands on them. We actually purchase apples 20 to 40 pounds at a time, just depending on what we have planned or what's coming up. And my kids go through them every single month before they have time to go bad. So if you're ever wondering how you can get produce and make it last longer, or how you can make it easier for your family, I will say that the quality and place where you're purchasing it absolutely does matter. We've had amazing luck with our Azure apples, and what I do is grab this box, I put them in a bowl full of water with a little splash of vinegar to make sure that they're all clean, set my timer for 2 minutes with them in the water, and then rinse them off well, let them set out to dry, and go ahead and put them in the refrigerator. This offers my kids a healthy, already pre-cleaned, delicious snack anytime that they're needing something fresh and clean. Plus, it gives us the ability to have fresh produce at the house all the time without having to run to the grocery store on repeat to refill on our produce. And while I'm here, notice the dishwasher. I haven't addressed this yet. My dishwasher did break down this week. So solidarity to anybody that doesn't have one. We have been running without it for a few days. But last night I asked my husband to at least shove it out of the way so I didn't have to walk around it anymore. When he plugged it back in, it had reset and is currently working. So if you can keep your fingers crossed for me that thing continues, that would be amazing. Okay, so we're going to look for made in the USA or grown in the USA. We're going to grow our own outside at our own houses if possible. And the third thing I want to encourage you to do to help beat the prices as they rise due to impending tariffs is to preserve your own food. Now, I know this often seems scary, the idea of preserving your own food. What if I buy something in bulk and it goes to waste? Or how am I going to handle this once I get it? These are all things that come to mind when you're thinking about going along this process. And I will be the first to admit I was totally there, not like 5 years ago. I had never canned something. I didn't grow up with a mom who canned. We bought our cans from the store just like everybody else. But when 2020 came up and supply chains became in question at that time, I decided it was time to make some changes around the house, figure out how we could do this, and it's been a really fun journey. Now, there are a lot of ways that you can preserve your own food at home, but today I want to take time just to talk about 3 of what I consider to be the easiest, most simple ways to get the job done. We're going to talk about canning, freezing, and vacuum sealing. I picked these 3 because they have relatively low barriers to entry, freezing and vacuum sealing being the cheapest, but then there's also canning. You can get into canning rather inexpensively, or again, you can go out and spend as much as you want on all the fancy things. These are all options. But when it comes right down to it, most of the time you can find canning jars from somebody who's no longer canning. Generations that gone before us often have lots of stores of canning jars in their homes. So if you can ask around to people that you might know or just tell them you're looking to get into canning, you might be surprised and come up with free canners or even some free jars, lids, rings, and those kinds of things. I would caution you on using old lids. Oftentimes that sealing compound around the top will get bad and then all of your hard work will be for nothing. My personal favorite on lids is 4 jars, and I'll make sure to put a link as well as a discount code down below. They are really, really strong. I have amazing success canning with them, and I don't have the seal failures. So if you're looking for some great lids, rings, or other gadgets, 4 jars is my go-to for that. So again, I'll make sure to link that down below. As far as actual equipment, what I'm doing right now are dry beans, and they do need to be pressure canned. So a pressure canner is a must if this is something that you want to take on. But you can find pressure canners for a really great sale or deal on the Facebook Marketplace. I have purchased many from them, including the digital that you're seeing me use right now. I've also had others offered to or given to me, which I passed on to other friends because I think 2 is enough for me right now. I might change my mind later, but for now, 2 is enough. And those kinds of things are out there and available if you are looking. If you do grab a pressure canner online, make sure to check with your local county extension office. They can check it for you to make sure that your gauge is reading properly if you're using one with a dial gauge. Sometimes that is something that you want to watch out for. Mine uses a weight, so I don't ever have to have that checked. But do make sure that if you're getting one online, you make sure to have it checked and you make sure that all of the pieces are there. If there are any missing parts, though, they're really rather inexpensive to replace. So just make sure it's not warped or cracked or anything of the kind. For water bath canning, you can use any pot that will cover the tops of your jars by at least a couple inches. So it really isn't that difficult to get into if you have an option for a really deep stock pot. I have a huge stock pot that I use for making sauce and tomatoes in the summer, and I also use it as my water bath canner. So my personal preference is not to have a specific pot for a water bath canning, but to use one that will be able to multitask in my kitchen. Now, what I'm preserving right now does not require canning of any kind, and that is my onions. Now, I grow onions every year, but I didn't grow enough to last all winter. I am hoping to do better this year. I have a ton of little starts downstairs that are looking great under my grow lights. But for now, I'm purchasing my onions from Azure Standard. I buy 10 pounds at a time, and these are actually pretty large onions. So I do want to make sure that they're not starting to go bad before I use them. In an effort to do that, I don't just throw them in a big basket and set them in my pantry. I hang these up, tying an individual knot in between every onion in an old set of knee-high pantyhose. I actually first started to go to a local store where I'm at and try to find some, but that was a no-go. It turns out people don't wear these anymore, so I had to get on Amazon and have them ordered in. I will make sure to go ahead and link that down there for you, but you might have some laying around you could use as well. Once you get them all tied up, I just take these down and hang them in a dark, cool place, which for me is my basement. That is about as cheap and easy as food preservation is gonna get. So if you're looking for something that has little barrier to entry, definitely go with the onion trick. If they do start to go bad on you, you can go ahead and chop them and freeze them. I do love having pre-chopped onions available because it makes dishes come together really, really fast. But if you're using them for a source like fresh eating, if you're making like an onion relish or something to go on top of a meal, you do want those fresh onions because you don't want the frozen texture. Now, I went ahead and dumped my composter. Speaking of gardening and growing, I am making homemade compost here at home with our family's food scraps. So I dump that about once a week just to make sure I'm keeping that flowing. But that is a really simple step that can really help improve your gardening outside. And you don't have to have a countertop composter to do it. Although if you are curious about mine, I will put that down in the description as well. You can just go ahead and throw your scraps outside, and there are all sorts of details on how to properly compost. I have obviously not mastered that skill. I like the ease of doing it inside, but there are $0 entry options, so I always like to point those out. Now, as for my dry goods, which you can see here, I do decant them into smaller jars and sections that I can use inside my pantry, but I keep all of them in 5-gallon buckets down in the basement. because I buy them 25 or 50 pounds at a time, because that ensures that I'll get the best price. That also is a huge deal to me right now, because I locked in those prices months ago, sometimes years ago, on the goods that I have downstairs. So those specific goods are not impacted by the impending tariffs. Now you might say, well, it's too late for me to worry about that, but it really isn't. You don't know what's coming down the road, but what we do know is that the majority of time prices don't go down. So if you are at a point when you have, even $100 or $50 to spend on helping to increase the quantity of food that you have in your house, locking in the price that you can get today, specifically on those goods that are already here right now and aren't coming in on a truck yet with the tariffs applied, it is a good idea to do so. You can get those 5-gallon buckets and purchase them, or check with a local bakery. Anything like that actually ices cakes inside will have an option, because they get all of their icing in huge 5-gallon buckets, and often they give them away or sell them for like a quarter, even with the lid. So check a local bakery. You can do this, and you can go ahead and do that too. Now, my next simple method of food preservation is freezing. Now, there are some things like produce that require you to blanch them for the best texture and color when you're ready to eat them. But then there are also things like cheese. I buy my cheese in 5-pound blocks at a time, and then I go ahead and shred it up. Now, I've been asked before if this changes the texture or if it gets gross or anything. It absolutely does not. The shredded cheese that I put in here comes out just the same, as long as you take the little bit of time to let it thaw. If you try to use it from frozen, which if you watch my channel for long, you probably see me do, I knock it on my counter to try to break it up, but my fingers almost freeze off when I'm using it because it is so insanely cold. So I do recommend thawing it just a little bit, but that's totally up to you. The texture wise and the way it melts, perfect. So here I've shredded up a 5-pound block of mozzarella, and I did half of my block of cheddar. I only had one 5-pound block of cheddar left, and we do slice a lot of it for fresh eating, and that way I can have the best of both worlds. Now, the reason that I don't buy pre-shredded cheese is A, it is cheaper, but B, I don't like the flour texture that comes on the outside of the shredded cheese, so this lets me control my ingredients and still get the savings. The third way I want to talk about food preserving is vacuum sealing. Now, I'm vacuum sealing these cheeses in a very, very light entry way. This little handheld vacuum sealer works with the little round circle bags with the valves on them. You just put it right on top, press a button, and it sucks all of the air out. With these being zip top bags, I can open them back up, get the cheese that I want out, and reseal them if I want. Anytime you're keeping oxygen out of a bag, you're doing a really good service for the longevity as well as the condition and quality of the food. So that's what I like to do. You can vacuum seal things like breads, which I just pulled up one of my frozen breads from downstairs so it could thaw for this week. But in order to do that effectively and not crush the bread, go ahead and freeze it for like a few hours to overnight. And that way the vacuum sealer itself won't crush the bread. Now, not everything that I'm putting in vacuum seal bags needs to be easily accessed or is going to be used anytime soon. So I'm also vacuum sealing the rest of my dry beans that we didn't go ahead and can up today, because my 5-gallon bucket is totally full in the basement. So I'm just putting these in a regular sealer, sucking out all of that air. And then I am going to put them in a 5-gallon food grade bucket, just like I was talking about grabbing from the bakery, along with some other containers that I am vacuum sealing as well. Things that are going to go in there: nuts, beans, and other dry goods that I have excess of, like the powdered milk that you saw earlier. I will check this bucket first for things that I need to grab out. Most of these nuts are things that I'm going to use here coming really soon for granola. Otherwise, I would go ahead and put them in the freezer for longevity. So to sum it all up, make your own, grow your own, buy USA, and learn to preserve. And if you have any questions, make sure to leave them down below.